You drop that round, what's the first thing that everybody tells you? Just let it go. Don't worry about it, right? Can you tell me how to not do something? We can't even put into words how to not do something. So that probably shouldn't be my first course of action. We're going to respond. We're not going to react. Everybody's going to make mistakes. If you're not making mistakes, it is because you are not being challenged. If we're going shooting, you're going to screw up. You're going to make some bad shots, because if you're not, I'm not pushing you hard enough for you to learn anything. Say I shoot a target and I shoot 30 rounds on that target. They were all supposed to be in the A zone. 4 of them were in the C zone. I go down and look at that target. What do those 26 shots that are in the middle tell me? What they really tell me is what I do works. I already know what I do work. Those 4 rounds that were in the C zone instead of the A zone, those are my opportunity to learn something. So when I see those 4 shots that are not in the middle, most people are like, oh, I freaking suck. I dropped a shot. It's like, well, yeah, that's the reason we're here. I'm here to learn something. And fundamentally learning something is change.
You're listening to The Hot Wash by Born Primitive Tactical. I'm Bruno Fallon. I've spent my 4-decade career in some of the most elite units in the United States Special Operations community, where I learned that elite operators aren't made overnight. They're forged through hardship, discipline, and relentless drive. In each episode, I sit down with the most accomplished and innovative leaders in special operations, industry, coaching, and athletes of all disciplines. Let's jump right in. Hey, this is Bruno Fallon with The Hot Wash by Born Primitive, here with Dan Horner. I'm going to give an intro in a second, but just want to go into a couple things right up front before we get into some really good stuff. You guys know this is called The Hot Wash, and I just want to go through the reasoning of that again. For those that don't come from the military culture, the Hot Wash is something that we do after a significant action, like a combat operation, a very high-end training event or exercise, where we get in and we debrief good and bad points and all that kind of stuff. And that's kind of what we're looking to do here is get in and talk to Dan and talk about what makes him tick, good things, and do the debrief of Dan, if you will. A little bit about Dan, if the audience doesn't know him, everybody in the special operations community does. To say he's an accomplished champion shooter is the understatement of the year. Dan goes back decades of shooting competitively. I would probably butcher if I tried to list every title or everything he's won. And I'm going to get him to open up and talk about that. But Dan, welcome.
Man, thank you so much for letting me be here. This is such a cool opportunity to get to sit down with you and talk about all this stuff. It's, yeah, super excited.
So a little bit of color on this. For all the special operations commands, Dan goes in there, and I'm going to have him talk about this. And he takes some very high level shooters and he takes them to the next level. And if you understood the level that these shooters are already operating at, when you bring somebody in and is able to elevate their game and all the service components want him, that kind of is his resume right there. If you really think about it, how long have you actually been doing that?
Teaching, since about 2009, 2010.
Okay, so I had General Scott Miller on the podcast prior, and as soon as I mentioned your name coming in here, he started telling me stories about you and stuff on the range and everything. So again, everybody in the community knows you. A little bit of background. I know you're with the U.S. Army Marksmanship Unit as a junior enlisted guy.
Oh yeah.
But what got you into shooting? What got you to be the guy you are today?
Man, it's actually kind of a wild story. So I started off, obviously, I had great parents. That's the reason I'm here. But my dad got me into hunting. I started carrying a shotgun when I was 6. Like my earliest memory was, he said, if I pulled my tooth, I could shoot like what I thought was John Wayne's revolver. It was really just a Ruger, a single 6.22. But I'm like, whatever, out goes the tooth. We're going to shoot this pistol. And, so I don't know how old you are. I don't have any idea how old I was when that happened, but little bitty guy. And then when my dad was a veterinarian, and a guy came in and to rob the vet clinic for cash, maybe not the Al Capone of the crime world, but he came in there and walked in, cocked a revolver on my dad and pointed at him. So, no time to react. My dad had a loaded gun in the drawer that he was standing in front of, but he couldn't get to it because the guy walked in with a cocked revolver. Ended up trying to rob the place, set the gun down for a second to get the cash. My dad subdued him, and they put this dude in the hospital and prison. And then he said, hey, if I'm going to, then he started carrying pistols on his person. So he had a pistol in his pocket and one on his ankle. But he was like, hey, if I'm going to take on this responsibility, I need to understand how to use it. So that was when I was 12 years old. And so we started going to the local IDPA competitions, just concealed carry pistol competitions. And I was homeschooled. So, I'm standing in the corner and, when picking up brass and scoring and taping targets, whatever I can do to help. And then finally the old timers were like, hey, if you want a chance, come on up. And I went through the course of fire very poorly, but safely. And so that was the start of it, man. So at 12 years old, I shot my first pistol competition.
12 years old, you were shooting
Yes,
competitively.
Yep.
How old were you when you entered the service?
And I just turned 19. So yeah, I was going to go anyway. I wanted to go into Ranger Battalion. But right as all of that was happening, the Army Marksmanship Unit reached out to me, and I'd won a couple of national championships before that, and so I kind of was like, well, my parents, they put a lot into me at this point. Like I at least need to go try out for this organization. And in the competitive shooting world, that is the pinnacle. The Army Marksmanship Unit is it has the best shooters in the world. And so I went down there for a 1-week tryout, passed the selection, and had the opportunity to join. I kind of struggled with it, and I was like, well, I'll go do this for a couple of years and then I'll go over to Ranger Regiment. So got there and just, it just never made sense to get over there. I was supposed to deploy with them twice, and the commander pulled the plug on it. One time I had done the entire train up up until Wednesday. Everybody was signed out on block leave on Friday, and he pulled the plug on it Wednesday prior to that. That was a tough one.
So how long were you in the Army Marksmanship Unit competing?
Oh, I was there for 13 years.
13 years.
Yes, sir. Yeah. And then SIG approached me and said, hey, you want to do the same thing, but out here on the civilian side? And I said, absolutely.
And you're an active shooter at Team SIG right now. I think everybody in the competitive shooting world knows that. I think you're the guy with the bullseye in your back when they show up. They're chasing you.
Try to be.
No, that's awesome. And how long have you been doing that now?
So I've been there for about 4 years.
Awesome. I mean, SIG's a great company, obviously very close with the military. So it's a great place for you. You went from basically one military unit to one company that supports the military, right?
In the area that I work over there, it's basically another military unit. So it's all the people well, and those are the guys that I'm working with every day.
No, that's great. So what is a day like being on Team SIG when you're actually engaged in shooting with them versus when you're back home at your property, which we'll talk about later?
So like actually on Team SIG, we all do different things. And so I'm in the multi-gun rifle, pistol, shotgun world. I'm in the long range rifle world. So my training, I pretty much do it all on my own. That was one of the biggest things to get used to in the military. And when I was in the Army Marksmanship Unit, I had 5 world champions around me every single day. Like you can't make a mistake without hearing 6 different ways you tell on how to fix it. Right. It's very similar from where you came from. Right. And then you get out and there's nobody there, and so now you have to self-assess. Your training is significantly different. So I do a lot of that training on my own now, in preparation for those big competitions.
How often do you compete in a year?
Usually about 4 to 6 times right now, because
is there a season for that where they're spread out or are they lumped together?
So usually it starts about February, March, ends about October, November, sometime in there. So December, January, there's not very much, but the rest of the year is busy. And, I shot 22 matches one year, which is quite a bit, but that's what you're doing the whole time. You're either preparing for an event, competing in the event, or recovering from the event from the middle of January until middle of December, if you're doing that.
It sounds like a competing deployment.
Yes. It's the first year I left the Army, I did 241 nights in a hotel room for SIG. So that was a lot.
I think everybody in our community knows that environment. It gets old fast, but so mindset. I want to go right to that.
Oh, dude.
It's probably my 2 favorite subjects is mindset and human performance. And you and I were talking a little bit about mindset, but I don't care what high level professional you are. Mindset is what carries you. I once had to explain to people, they see some of these operators that they're not big muscular guys. They're not built like me. Um, and they're like, well, how does that guy do it? And I'm like, because that guy's mind, he is able to will his body to do everything. Like the first thing I learned years in the special operations community is do not judge the book by the cover. So, I mean, how do you feel about mindset in competitive shooting?
Oh man, I could go on for hours. It's to me, it's the only thing that matters. You get to a level, and this is true in anything. In my opinion, the top people are capable of the same things. It's just there's a couple of people that can do it under pressure every single time, and those are the guys that win consistently. And it applies. One of the things, when I'm teaching, I tell everybody, like, the way I envision my shooting, if you imagine a big empty room, and then in that room you imagine balloons, right? And on those balloons are all your skills. You got pistol draw, pistol reload, rifle, long range, position. Like there's hundreds of balloons, right? And those are all your skills that you've got to train. And then your job is to go into that room and train, but you only got two hands. So I can only train one or two things at a time. And so I tell them, like, I believe you don't do something at the expense of something else. You do something at the expense of everything else. And so if my job as an instructor is to come in, know which balloons are important and to what level, and then the most efficient way to relay the important information to the person that's going to receive it, and give it to them in a way that they can receive it, so that they can train those skills that are important to a level that's acceptable. But in my world, I've got my shooting room, I've got my business room, family room, all these different rooms I run into and work on things. But I tell them, you got to imagine those balloons. If you're not tapping them up in the air, they're sinking, And so I tell them, I've got a house of rooms, but they've got a hotel of rooms, right? You've got jumping and driving and diving and mission plan and commo. And there's tons of things that you have to be proficient at. But so your balloons in each one of those rooms, like you're going to go skydive with some great skydivers. They are extraordinary skydivers because they spend their time in that room training that system, right? You're probably very capable compared to them, but because you're so good at all these other things, they are very, very good skydivers, right? So I tell them, my job is to be extremely good with a gun because I live in this room. You're supposed to come into this room, train the things that you're going to need on target to a level that's acceptable, and then move on to the next room the next week. And so to me, it's a way to give a bunch of super A-type personalities the grace to be good enough at something, because everybody wants to come out there and beat me. Just like everybody wants to go beat the skydiving guy and the driving guy, right? But it's like your job is to be the best operator, and the best operator is not the world champion shooter or the world champion skydiver. So I think it's that mindset is interesting to realize in that tactical world, and then efficient training is critical at that level, because you're trying to be a great operator, which includes so many different facets. And one thing that I see a lot is when your goal in competition is to shoot as well as, in my world, right? We'll stick in shooting, is to shoot as well as I'm prepared to shoot. So what does that really mean? It means that I need to be able to control myself to be able to perform at the level that I'm prepared to perform at. So that means I've got to understand what level I am actually at. And how do I understand that? I understand that through training. So I have to set up realistic training that allows me to assess where I'm truly at. And that's one thing in the special operations community that is, I don't want to say it's overlooked, but I think it's starting to be a little more obvious in recent years, because there's no room for failure in what you guys do, right? Like, if you outrun your skis and you try to perform at a level that you're not prepared to perform at, and you try something that you're not able to do, somebody could die, right? Or the mission could be a failure. And so one of the things that special operations operators are screened for is the discipline and ability to stay within their capabilities, right? And so one thing that I encourage the team leader level, especially, is to set up realistic training with zero repercussions for failure. It's like, so let's go out there and let's run over our skis, right, in a training environment with the intent of doing that. Because if you're holding yourself back the whole time, you may be capable of 10 or 20% more that you didn't even realize, because you've never been put in a training situation where it was okay to fail, to see where that line is, right? And everybody's like, oh, we went right up to the line. It's like, well, you have no idea if that's a true statement. The only way to know what your real capabilities are is to overrun that capability and then be like, oh, there it was, right? And now I can make a deliberate decision on what level I'm going to operate at, which should be as close to that line as is possible, that's repeatable and consistent.
You nail it. One of the biggest things in the special operations community, I always refer to it as the grind, is the workup. Whether it's to assume an alert posture, go deploy, do whatever it is, but you have to go and do all these core key tasks to get ready to go. There's some people that will say that, you're a jack of all trades, master of none. That's really not true. If you look at the level of competence that is operated at, the master of many, it's just very hard on ourselves, judge ourselves very much. The one thing I always see is the guys are very hard on themselves. And then we go work with somebody that's not at the level they're at. And you look at each other and you're like, okay, the guys are really better than we think. It's
because they're comparing themselves to the world champion at whatever the individual skill is that they're looking at that week.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And the other thing is too, and this is good to have this in the community is the lions, not sheep mentality of, somebody drops around, somebody doesn't have a great jump landing, whatever, somebody lands in the wrong LZ, his peers will let him know and they're going to let him know for about 2 years.
Right.
It's just going to be eternal and you don't make that mistake again. Right. If you were going to try and condense it and say to yourself, basic fundamental priorities because there's going to be a lot of people listening to this that don't shoot anywhere. First of all, I don't shoot anywhere in your scope. And I'm a decent shot. Now there's a lot of people listening to this that will, really good shots, but for the guy that's like, wow, I really want to step it up. What would you say your basic fundamentals to the people that are really at a lower level to get to the next level would be?
As far as shooting, I would say, well, the thing that I see the most, I don't want to say harm, but the most waste, I guess, is people will go train with no purpose. And they'll go to the range and they'll say, I'm going to go train pistol draw. Like, okay, cool. Even me at my level, right? You tell me, hey, go down to the range and train pistol draw. All right. Say I start on an 8-inch plate at 10 yards and I draw in 2 seconds and I spend 1,000 rounds in an entire day. And at the end of the day, I'm at 1 second. Is that good or bad? I have no idea. Right. Because I didn't go down there with a purpose. And so for me, I'll tell you, if you want to go win a multi-gun national championship, you only need a 1.5 second pistol draw. Like almost everybody can do that with very little training. If you want to go win a steel challenge pistol tournament, you need a 70 draw. So I can go down to that range and train and be successful and unsuccessful at the same time because I didn't define what my path. And I tell everybody it's extremely similar to land nav, right? If land nav is the best example of training to me, I need a map and I need to know 2 things, right? I need to know where I'm at and where I'm going, right? Because if I just go down there to train, I'm just wandering around the woods hoping to land where I want to be. And that is not a good plan. So I see these guys go out, or even if they do have a plan, it's like, I'm going to go be good at this drill that I saw on Instagram. You're like, okay, cool. Well, they're not giving away a world champion drill category. And, why are you doing this drill specifically? Right. Well, it's done out of a competition rig on a competition target and a competition setting, but I only carry self-defense. It might be a waste of time, man. Like you might get a lot more out of just doing 5 minutes of dry fire with your concealed carry gun and then going and hanging out with your kids for the other 45 minutes that going and shooting that drill
So train for the purpose.
Train for the purpose. But then once you say, hey, I'm going to go down to the range, and I'm going to do this, you have to define success immediately. And that's one thing that I run into in the special operations community all the time is if you have A-type high performing people, if you do not define success right off the beginning, they will feel like a failure the entire time because you could have always done one more rep. You could have always done a little bit better. There's no success. And I tell them, it's like you put a 110-pound rucksack on and just start walking up that hill. You'll get to the top, but it's going to hurt. So, but if I define success of like, hey, move to this point, right? And we go out there and we say, we're going to start with a 2-second pistol draw and we're going to get everybody to a 150 pistol draw. And then we do it. You know, we still got that 110-pound rucksack on. We're still walking to the top of the mountain, but we're just going to stop and turn around and be like, oh, the view's improving. Cool. Go us, right? Now keep walking up the hill. But if you don't say this is successful, you have guys that just train and train and train and train and train. And they feel like a failure all the time because there's always a guy that's a little bit better. Right. But what I do is what I try to do anyways, I want to get with the team leaders and be like, hey, how good do you, first of all, what's important? Right. So like we got our map here. We kind of know where we're at. If we don't in the first couple of drills, we'll know where we're at. And then when we talk with the team leaders, it's like, where are we going? We want to get, you know, half these guys are going into an environment where they can only carry a pistol. Well, okay, cool. Maybe pistol's important this week. Right. Or, you know, hey, we're going to a place where, you know, odds are, you know, if we get into an engagement, it's not going to be past a room. So we don't need to work on 200-meter stuff or, you know, so we set the vision of the most likely engagement. And then we train to that, you know, there's, and then we always train the core skills, right? So because, like I said, I feel like it's the instructor's responsibility to know what it is. It's like, if you're going to engage with a rifle, you need rapid time to first shot, you need the ability to manage recoil, and you need the ability to transition targets. No matter what, those three things will be necessary. So like, let's make sure we're good at those three things, and then we'll start getting fancy from there.
So talk to me about, this is kind of bouncing back to mindset, but this goes for competitive athletes of every nature, no different for shooting. You drop that round, you have a bad moment. I don't care if it's a physical thing, whatever. The guys and gals that can't get past that and then they're tanked after that versus the people that can just drop it. Talk to me about that.
Dude, if I could go back to 16-year-old me and talk about this, I would kill for it, right? Because you drop that round, what's the first thing that everybody tells you? Don't worry about it, man. Don't think, just let it go. Don't worry about it, right? Can you tell me how to not do something? We can't even put into words how to not do something. So that probably shouldn't be my first course of action, right? So every time I get a chance to talk to guys about this, you know, that is not the plan, right? Because I can't even articulate how to not do something. So we're going to respond. We're not going to react. Everybody's going to make mistakes. It's not only part of the process, it's part of the plan, right? If you're not making mistakes, it is because you are not being challenged. So I tell everybody, if we're going shooting, you're going to screw up. You're going to make some bad shots, because if you're not, I'm not pushing you hard enough for you to learn anything. And to go back just a little bit in your questioning, when I go and I say I shoot a target, you know, and I shoot 30 rounds on that target, they were all supposed to be in the A zone. 4 of them were in the C zone, right? I go down and I look at that target. What do those 26 shots that are in the middle tell me? What they really tell me is what I do works. I already know what I do works, right? I got a bunch of shiny little trinkets that say all this stuff works, right? Those 4 rounds that were in the C zone instead of the A zone, those are my opportunity to learn something. So when I see those 4 shots that are not in the middle, you know, most people are like, oh, freaking suck. You know, I dropped a shot. It's like, well, yeah, that's the reason we're here. Like I'm here to learn something, and fundamentally learning something is change, right? So if you're not open to change, you do not need to train, because you're going to resist valuable, obvious, true knowledge, because you're trying to basically create an environment that just reinforces what you believe, which is wrong. So training is change. Bad shots are the reason that we're there, and it is our opportunity to learn. So was it bad? Yes. Is it's bad in a technical sense. It's not bad in a fundamental sense. We're there for those shots. But what is bad is to see those shots and not learn something from them. So now we need to assess the shots, and there's a million ways of doing that, right? But how do we get over that bad shot? We're going to look at the situation, and we're going to honestly analyze what the real cause of that bad shot was. And so I had a buddy, we were at a national championship one time. He goes out there, shoots the long range portion, right? And we're shooting 10-inch plates at like 300 to 400 meters, and we're shooting them off barricades, and the barricades suck. So he comes off, and he was actually leading by about 35 points over 9 stages on a 12-stage event. So he had basically been winning by an average of 4 points. And he comes off, and he had lost his lead. He basically went down to a 0. And so I'm like, hey, what happened? He's like, I don't know. I freaking suck. I'm like, well, I can't fix that, right? That's too big a problem for us to overcome today, right? He's like, well, I don't know, man. He's like, and he did. He crushed everything. He's like, I just suck at long range. Like, the dude is a qualified sniper. He is objectively a champion level long range rifle shooter that people bring in to teach long range that are professionals, right? Like, he is a good long range rifle shooter. So I'm like, hey man, like, that's not true either, right? So like, what? And I watched him shoot, so I knew what the problem was. And so I just keep asking him these questions, and I'm like, okay, could it possibly be? And so what I said was, was your rifle zeroed? He's like, well, yeah. I'm like, did you know the hold to the target? Yeah. Okay. Were you able to hold the target? He goes, well, no. I'm like, oh, okay. So maybe it's not that you're a bad human being and you suck at life, or that you're bad at a long range. Maybe it's just that you're too undisciplined to gain a stable firing position, right? I can fix that, and I can fix that quickly, right? So then I look, and I was like, okay, well, what are we going to do to fix that? Well, we're going to go back, and when we train, we're going to put a 3-inch shooting C up at 100 yards, and we're going to set a 4-second par time, and you're going to drop into a kneeling supported position until you can hit that shooting C 9 out of 10 times. And he's like, okay. I'm like, you can do that now if you would just choose to do it. So we'll work on choosing to do it when we get back there. But what I got him to see was that in the moment when that bad thing happens, it's not a reflection of your entire existence. It was this one small thing. Now, one small thing might have catastrophic, repercussions, and I'm not diminishing that. What I'm saying is that bad stuff will happen, but you need to find the actual cause of the bad thing, establish a plan to correct it when the time is right, and understand that the time is not now. You're being evaluated now. So we're just seeing where you're at. And we saw that, in that situation, we were lacking. Then I'm like, okay, if you have to do that over the next 3 courses here, and this goes back to balancing perceived skill and actual skill. You thought you were this good. You were proven to be this good. Understand the lesson that you just taught yourself, and don't try to perform here the rest of the day. Perform where you've been shown that you're actually at, and perform right there. Cool thing is, we don't have any more of that to do today. And if you just do what you have been doing for the last 9 stages, you'll win by 12 points because you've been winning by 4 coming into that, right? So something bad happens, I respond, I don't react. I understand what the actual problem was, and I take as long as it takes to truly understand what the problem was. Then I write down on one side of a piece of paper what the real problem is, right? And then on the other side of the piece of paper, I write down what I'm going to do to correct that deficiency when the time is right, and then I put it away. So it allows me to make a mistake, understand the mistake, turn it into an opportunity to improve myself, and it allows my brain to understand that will happen in the appropriate time, which is not right now, and that allows me to move on. And then the next thing I do is I start preparing for the next event, whatever that might be, whether it's a shooting stage or the next training event or whatever it is. But that process, that guy also ended up winning by like 25 points. Nice. He went from a freaking spiral to coming out of it. So like, not saying, I mean, he did it. It wasn't just because of that, right? But that talk right there, if I could give that talk to myself when I was, a young guy, man, it would have changed my life, because overcoming bad things that will happen is, in my opinion, one of the most difficult things, because really what it is it's an imbalance of your perceived skill and actual skill. And your brain has been faced with objective data that you're not as good as you think you are, which really means you aren't the person that you believe yourself to be. So it's a like attack on your core self.
So something I'm real big on, and you're doing it whether you know it or not, is mentorship. There's a style of coaching and a style of evaluating, and mentorship falls in between both of them. Um, Training people not just to know their flaws, but how to improve their flaws, and then having them understand those flaws so they can train people on them too. It sounds like you've nailed it.
Oh, dude, that's what I love.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Well,
Working with guys like I start every class off with two things. One, I say, I win a lot of matches, right? I win a lot of national championships, and people are like, well, why do you keep shooting? It's because there's a very small group of people that want to learn from the best guy, and the best guy is determined through competition, and in my opinion, nowhere else. So it's like, if you have a skill, jumping, driving, all these things, a competition is just a gradient evaluation of a standardized task against your peers, right? So it's like, we go out there, we say these things are important, and then we measure people's ability to do that. And so I tell them, I go and win those competitions so that I can be the guy that gets the phone call to get to go do this, right? Like, I would not be able to sit down with you and do this if I didn't win stuff. So it's like, I win to prove that I have a chance to come do something as cool as this.
Got it. No. Question for you. I'm very curious. Do you, and this is from other things that I've done in training people, do you find it easier to train the younger guys that are a little less junior in experience and just, open, like they're just a bucket? You can fill them with information, and it's difficult to train the older guys that are set in their ways and maybe have created some bad habits and stuff they're doing that you've got to overcome?
No, honestly, when I was younger, I would have said yes, but now I've learned, and it didn't last long. I said maybe 6 months. I thought that my job was to make the best shooter that I could make, and that's not my job. And actually going a little bit back because I lost my train of thought just a little bit. When I start the class, I tell them, thank you, and this is why I'm here, and I truly appreciate the honor of getting to be here and work with these guys in this environment. And then I tell them, like, hey, I'm going to teach you everything that I know, so that you guys, in a way that you guys can take to the rest of the force, right? Because all these guys, it might be their next door neighbor's wife or something, or their next door neighbor, but all these guys end up in a teaching position. And so I tell them, like, I'm going to teach you how I teach and what I look for. Not saying it's the only way back to the land nav route. Like, there's a million ways to get to that hilltop, right? But this is a way. And so that's why I tell them, like, I'm going to teach you everything that I know, in a way, and the way to teach it. But to your point now, is it easier to train the younger guys or the older guys? My job is to make the most lethal operator that I can in the amount of time that I have available. And so, the older guys, I look at them like me and you went to the range right now. I do not care what your pistol grip is. I'm going to look at you and I'm going to optimize your grip. And this is not a generality that should be taken outside of a couple of very specific places. But whatever your pistol grip is, got you where you are, and that's at the top. And back to our balloon analogy, if your goal is to go win a pistol national championship, we're going to start, we got to start all over, and you have to do it my way, because it's objectively the best way to manage recoil, acquire targets, transition, right? But in your world, if you're shooting a pistol, it means your rifle went down, my rifle went down, and the best option is to pull a handgun out and gunfight a dude that probably has a rifle in a room. Like, things have gone sideways. We're not shooting 30-yard plates on the move. We're shooting a man-sized target at CQB distance. It kind of doesn't matter how you hold the pistol, but you do need to be able to get that thing out quick and get rounds on target at a very close range as fast as possible. And that may or may not be with a perfect sight picture and a perfect trigger press. It may be freaking nods cocked off sideways, and you can only see out of one eye, and all I can do is see this threat, and I need to be able to put rounds on target, not in the middle, on target, fast.
No, that's great. Question for you. Are you have you or worked with the new up and coming thing? And a lot of my ambassadors at Born Primitive Tactical are these tactical athletes. It's interesting because my analogy of it is you have a lot of professional level CrossFitters that are crossing over to this, and they dominate the fitness events. But if they can't shoot, they don't win.
Yeah.
And we're seeing more and more, and I've got a couple of the athletes. Matter of fact, the two-time national female champion, Janae, is one of our athletes. She can shoot.
Mm-hmm.
And she spends a lot of time on the range, a lot of time in the gym, a lot on the range, but she has the balance. Are you working with, or have you, seen any of these competitions?
Oh yeah. I've gotten to work with a few of them. I may actually go and do the tactical division sometime soon. I looked at it when it was early on, and people were like, "Oh, you need to get into it." And I was like, well, if you're going to do it, you got to do the winner is the elite division, right? And so I looked at it, and it was like, 180-pound sandbag overhead carry. And I'm like, dude, I weigh 150. Like, I'm out. So
yeah, there's no doubt it's a gut check. If you go and physically watch one of these competitions, that's what changes the game. Is even the ones that so you can't go there as an unfit champion shooter. And you can't go there as a champion athlete that can't shoot. Right. You've got to have the balance, and the ones that are winning do. I've got quite a few of those athletes, and they're actually none of them. Well, I have one that has a military special operations background, but most of them don't. So it's pretty impressive to me that because they didn't come from that culture. But I would say the biggest market that is out there for that right now is shooting coaches. Hands down, like I've got a couple athletes that probably would podium if they could shoot better. So I just something I'm curious to know if that's like a swing for shooting coaches.
Yeah, yeah. And that game is it's fairly simple. Like you look at what I do is I look at it. I love the way Elon Musk looks at things is like, to look at it like fundamentally. And so a long time ago, I started doing that. You look at like tactical games, like fundamentally, it's very simple. There's not a ton of shooting on the move. There's not a ton of it's basically gain a stable firing position, aim in the middle of the target, press the trigger without moving it. And it doesn't even need to be done super fast. So it's very easy to train. It's very simple to train for. It's not very easy.
We actually talked before the podcast a little bit. Where are the SIG ARC games? Are they coming back? What's the future of those?
Yeah, they're not coming back this year. So that competition was a multi-discipline competition where we shot rifle, pistol, shotgun, long range, some team stuff, moving targets. It was kind of an all-encompassing thing. And it came from, there was a competition a while back called the NRA World Championships. And it was 32 different disciplines, and they were all scored the way that the actual stuff was scored with the guns that you were supposed to use, all that. And I thought that was the best competition that's ever been ran for that type of an event. And so we emulated that with the SIG ARC games. But I don't think it will not be this year. It may come back next year.
I think the ringer in that was it had archery in it.
Yeah.
And just for the people listening, the Born Primitive team actually won that event. I will full disclosure, we loaded it up. Two of our three people were avid hunters and special operators. They did extremely well to the point where I think the rest of the crew out there felt like there was a biased, like, hey, like you didn't know we were going to send a team like that, but no, the guys had a good time. They loved it. And I knew you had your name all over it. And I think it'd be really good to come back. I can tell you that if it comes back, Born Primitive will be at it every year.
Good.
It's absolutely, and we've got, between the archery and the gun side of it, we've got a pretty competitive team ready to go.
Oh yeah. Y'all crushed it. You did great. And for the guys, for the people listening, like, we did these archery events, and, it's really hard to truly induce stress, in my opinion, physical stress is not the same as real stress. Like I don't care how many burpees you do, it will not feel the same as when that 11 point buck walks out at 22 yards, right? And you're got to pull that bow back. And so when I do training, it's like, if I want people to learn with very little stress, you just put them out there, right? You want to add stress, you put a clock on them. You want to add more stress, you put a clock on them with everyone watching. You want to add more stress, clock on them, everyone watching, only one opportunity, right? But you want the most stress, everyone watching on a clock with a teammate. Because if me and you go out there, I want to do well for me, but I want to not let you down infinitely more, right? Then I want to do well for myself. And so we're like, let's add a little bit of stress to this archery thing. And so we had this rock star giant archery course that was probably quarter mile long. And we gave them 15 minutes. And there was, I think, 10 targets or 15 targets maybe in that loop. And everybody had to shoot it. So you shot your arrows into the first target, you ran down, pulled the arrows, ranged the next target, shot your arrows into the next target, and you kind of leapfrogged all the way through this course. And I forgot what you guys scored, but y'all absolutely just demolished that course of fire.
Yeah, and the truth behind it all is when we were first approached by it, it had to be BP employees. So it's going to be owner Bear, myself, and Kurt Gamachet. And then when we looked at the disciplines, we were not going to go embarrass ourselves. We were going to train. And you were talking the CEO, a VP and a director. And we couldn't commit to it. So we said, we're just going to build a team. So Kurt, who was running our outdoor side, reached out to Cody Alford and Mike Hearn, both ambassadors of ours. So they are BP people. And they put a team together and they never got to train together. No, I mean, and the other thing that was a little bit of a curveball is SIG sent us the guns and they didn't have any time on the guns.
Oh, really?
So I can remember Kurt, I think, just got his dialed in and that was it.
Oh, wow.
Like he didn't have any habitual time on it. So we didn't know how it was going to go. And they got out there. And then just because of not wanting to disappoint the guys, like the funny thing was, is they're reporting back to me and, it was pretty obvious who dropped what stage by the text I was getting.
Yeah.
But it was good. It was good camaraderie. And, it was one of those things that we were unhappy that we didn't do a better job of PRing the event as a company, co-branding with them because they went out there and they won it. And it was kind of just like a feather in our cap. And we really didn't seize the moment. So we're looking to seize that moment. So bring it back.
We'll do our best. I love that type of stuff and it's so funny because you'll see guys come in and it's like the ups and downs of a competition like that are just immense, because you've got guys that are phenomenal archers and they shoot 2 archery stages. They're feeling like gods. Then they go over to the hunting handgun course where they're shooting a 10 mil at 120 yards. Less rock star. So right. The ups and downs of that are rough.
No, yeah. And I think basically what you laid on with the course was really unique balance because you could not come in there as a 3-gun guy. You could not come in there. The archery was definitely the one where if you didn't have that background, you couldn't go. And to be honest with you, that put me and Bear out because neither of us are, I mean, the last time I had a bow pulled was a couple of years ago and I was not going to go compete at that level. So
that was a big, yeah. We had some hard archery shots out there.
Yeah, well, we've got a guy named Aaron Snyder that when you bring it back, for some reason, I think he's going to be on our team, but we'll get after it. But yes, if you guys bring that back, Born Primitive will definitely have a team. And along going back to the tactical games, I can tell you, I know we're going to talk more about your relationship with SIG, but I really think that's whatever you want to call it, the new hotness that's growing so fast. We actually sponsor, it's called the Patriot Games. It's a Florida-based operation. It is essentially exactly a parallel to the tactical games. We also sponsor another company called Green Bright Fitness that does some very unique events. And they're not just limited to running and gunning and that kind of stuff. They do some heavy endurance events, long range road marching and stuff. But we enjoy that. We enjoy sponsoring that, being a part of it. But there's nothing that beats the shooting fitness combination. I mean, it's just, it definitely shows the weak points, right? Oh, yeah. So
it's funny too. There's some techniques to dealing with that. We shot, me and my buddy Tyler Payne shot sniper competitions like internationals, use stock, all those. And like when you start adding those physical element, like extreme physical stress, it's not like I said, to me, it's totally different. But I just know for me, once my heart rate's over 165 beats a minute, I will do some dumb stuff. So I wear a heart rate monitor all the time. And it's like, because as soon as I see it tick over that, it's like, okay, I'm going to slow down what I'm doing. Because again, that balancing that perceived skill and actual skill, it's like, I believe that the goal is to perform optimally given the current set of conditions, not the best you could ever do. Right. And so when I'm 20 miles in and at 170 beats a minute on a heart rate, and me and you were shooting together, I'm going to tell you everything that I'm getting ready to do so that you can sanity check me and make sure I'm not getting ready to do something stupid. But if you're there by yourself, you need that discipline to be like, oh, you know what? My heart rate is extremely high. I know that I'm not thinking correctly. So my perception of what I believe is real may not be completely real, because I'll run guys through stress shoots. And my first question is like, hey, how'd it feel? What'd you think? And they will tell me something they believe to be true that never happened. It was not reality. Right. And so, but you can't argue with them, because to them, that's what happened. And that was reality. So you once you get those high heart rates, that extreme level of stress, and you're trying to do something precise, a very, very precision skill, aim and hit a target, you need to slow everything down and operate at what your capabilities are in that moment, not what you believe them to be at the training range.
No, you're absolutely right. Shifting gears, let's talk about SIG. Fan of the brand. We both have a lot of common friends that are there. A lot of people from the community are there. They've just won some really nice contracts with the military and stuff, and going into production. We were Born Primitive recently participated in a SIG Rose event with Lena. She is an amazing lady. That is an amazing program. Was absolutely. I brought one of our employees and one of our ambassadors. They're actually both out here at SHOT Show with us, and I was blown away by the whole retreat of what they were doing, not just at the range, but everything down to even like the fashion show and stuff like that. So it's a pretty neat program. Is there anything like that for the guys?
There's not. We're looking at trying to figure something out, because I think that, that program is really set up for ladies who don't have a lot of experience, that know that self-defense is important, and they just don't know where to start. And 100 years ago, everybody grew up with guns in the house, and everybody shot guns, and their dad taught them how to shoot, and they went and they hunted. And we all like to think that that's the case now, but it's just not. Way more people than not are growing up, in the cities, and they don't have access to these skills and things like that. And the men know that they should, and they know that they're responsible for protecting their family, but there's nowhere to start. There's no easy button of like, hey, just buy this type of ammo, watch these videos, do these things, and you'll be competent.
Yeah. And I think the other piece of it is too, with the firearm is, I did grow up in the environment you did with firearms at a very young age, and you get very comfortable, and you see people that you can immediately know when you're around them just by their handling of the weapon, the safety issues and things like that. And I think that is what's probably most important is that people get comfortable enough with a weapon that they don't worry about the weapon, that it's just part of their apparel. Every guy we know, appendix carries a gun everywhere he goes, right? It's natural. It's part of getting dressed.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that mentality, or it's part of your wardrobe, now all of a sudden you have to think about it. I'm afforded the luxury of, I don't have any young kids in my house. So I'm one of those guys that has a gun in every room. It is what it is. And I'm comfortable with that because my wife is a shooter, and I nickname her Annie Oakley. She can shoot, not at your level for the record. Not many people can, but we are very pro firearms, and you're right. It's making it more difficult now. And I'm hoping that we're making that turn to where firearms are more palatable and just, it's not the enemy again. Cause we all know that firearms don't do any bad business. People do. Right. So what else, Sig, talk to me. What do you shoot, day to day? What do you shoot in competition? I'm a huge fan of all their line and everything. I'm just kind of like, if somebody was going to go buy a Sig right now, what entry level gun, and then what I'm a really good shooter level would you talk them into?
I would say if you're just looking for a general purpose gun, any of the 365s, they're the carry gun, but they come in basically every size. They got everything from a 10 round little small 365 up to a gun that holds 21 rounds, and it's a super shootable, concealable, accurate, reliable. It's just a good pistol. If you want a competition pistol, we've got the 320. I've got a DH3 version that comes with silicon carbide grips. Like, and truthfully, this 2024, that year, I took that gun out of the box, did a trigger job, and won nationals with it. Like, nothing else done to it.
That is amazing.
Yeah, it was all I did was a trigger job that took me 20 minutes. So that's a very good, and that's a full size handgun. 4 21 round mags come with it. Like, that's what that thing's designed to do. They like you said, they won a bunch of big contracts, most notably the new Army rifle with the XM7. That's an underestimated capability. That people do not understand how big of a deal that high pressure ammunition is, and our ability to put it into something that me and you can carry around. So I tell everybody that is the difference of going from black powder to smokeless powder. Like, it was not a small step; it was a massive step. If you think about a 300 Win Mag and a 45 pistol, a 45 pistol shoots a 200 grain bullet at about at about 1,000 feet a second, but it's shooting at about 25,000 psi in the chamber. A 300 Win Mag is shooting a 200 grain bullet at about 60,000 psi, so about 30,000 psi gain. A 300 Win Mag has more energy at 2,000 meters than a 45 at point blank.
That's insane.
It's insane, right? It's not a small gap. We just went from 60,000 psi to 80 or 90,000 psi. So we've taken that, like, it is a massive step forward. We're able to shoot a 136 grain bullet at about 3,000 feet per second out of a 13-inch barrel.
Wow. I mean, for people that don't know what that means, that is insane.
It's insane. It's punching through basically anything practical that you want to shoot through. It will go through it.
Yeah, we were given a good SIG tour when we were up there for Lena's event, and yeah, there was no shortage of pallets of them getting ready to go to the Army. I mean, it was full tilt. Very impressive operation up there. The factory, walking through the quality control, the way everything was set up and done, and that was my first tour up there for the full place, and it's pretty impressive.
It's impressive. Yeah, you walk in there, and to me, it looks more like a medical production facility. Everything's white, everything's clean. The robots are all doing their thing. Like, it's an impressive production. So
what that you can talk about is next for SIG? I mean, what's on the horizon?
It's all the defense side, as far as remote weapon stations, drones. I mean, that's the future of
the next gen fight. Yeah. I mean, everybody's getting ready for that. The buzzword used in the military was near peer, and that's to compete with the superpowers that are out there and things like that. It is a game changer.
And one thing that SIG is winning a lot, and people keep asking, how do they win so much? It's like, man, if you really think about it, it's the only thing that could happen, right? Is if you don't think about the company as a company, you think about it like a sports team. You've got a company that is winning, right? And so if you've got a team that's winning, who does everybody want to play for? So now you've got the pick of the litter of engineers and test techs and people with vision. Like, I want to be on this winning team, and then that snowball continues to roll down. But it comes from having the best guys, on the military side. Steve, like the military side is nothing but highly capable operators from backgrounds that you obviously know. And those are the guys that they're not designing the gun, right? They're just establishing what the capability should be. And then when you get that requirement from the Army, it's like, oh, okay, I see what they were trying to get, because I've carried a gun before. I know what this line is, what they're trying to get with this line right here. they're trying to get a gun that's lighter, but still able to do X, Y, and Z. And so because you've got guys that are kind of steering the ship that have that prior experience, then you've got the top level engineers right below them that are like, oh, okay, I can translate this into something practical. That's why it's
No,
happening.
I can fully relate to that. I mean, it's no myth that I couldn't cut and sew fabric or anything. When I was brought to Born Primitive, it was because I'm an athlete and because I have a tactical background. I'd been retired for quite a bit of time. We could pull operators active duty, which we did, and consult them. But the idea was me give them the mission statement of what we were trying to achieve, and then verify that they were building what I wanted built. And we started off with the op assault pant, which fun story. When I sent Dan some of these, I was like, I hope you like them. And honestly, anybody that's met me knows I don't hard press them. I just either you like them or you don't. And tell me a story about.
Oh man, yeah, I like those pants a lot. They're really good pants. So I got those things, and they were just so comfortable. I literally like wore them for a week straight, and then I ended up going up and teaching, and I taught the whole weekend. They're awesome. Yeah, highly recommend them.
Yeah, I love them. They're called the op assault pant, but I've nicknamed them the tactical pajamas because how soft they are. And the thing I didn't even realize, I will never bash any other brands because those brands got me through my career in combat zones because that's what we had. We just wanted to make it a little more sports performance, which is where we're going now. When I came in military, we didn't have human performance. When you were broke, and you kept pushing. Now we're doing the right thing. The longevity of the guys, keep them in the game. It is absolutely the right answer for the guys. But the irony of it is for me is like I would go home and the first thing I would do would be shed my uniform. Now I go home and I'm playing with my dog, talking to my wife, and I'm in this stuff for like 2 hours and I realize I need to get out of this.
Yeah.
So obviously we're doing something right.
100%.
So what would you like us to build that we don't have in our line that you think would be good for competitive shooters?
Oh, I don't know specific to competitive shooters, but I would love to see a tactical lightweight, waterproof pant that has belt loops on the outside so that when it's out there just pouring rain, you can put those things on and then put your normal kit on and be drier.
So not to pre-release anything, but we may be partnering with London Bridge and attacking a maritime uniform that may have some of those things you want.
There you go.
The demand out there right now is our next big release is going to be some tactical footwear that we've been working on for over a year and a half. The big thing for us is we've got a training shoe that is just dominating in the athletic world, the Savage One. And we wanted to do something to get away from that European toe box, not the wide toe box, have more of a zero drop, be more sports performance, but still do the things operators need. So we've been working on this boot forever, and we're going to release it this year. But our next big goal is something that doesn't really exist right now, is a performance-built maritime uniform.
Yeah.
And the maritime uniform will work in wet weather. I mean, it's the same capability. So anything else you can think of?
Yeah. I think you could start incorporating some electronics in this stuff and really set yourself apart.
Yeah, we are working with a company that is using our op top and they're putting monitors in it. And we're in the early stages with that. But he's a doctor, he's got a PhD, and we're doing a bunch of testing with him, and it's way above my level, but we see that as well too. I think the future for everybody, you're talking about the weapon systems that SIG is building. The future for us is modernization and what law enforcement and what the military is getting into is what we're building for. And this spinoff is the tactical athletes and people who just want to wear what everybody else is wearing. But we are building everything we're building for special operations forces and law enforcement that's in a tactical role.
Yeah.
Let's go back a little bit because I think what everybody wants to hear from you is about training. We sat down there before we came up at the booth at SHOT, and I have a bunch of shooters and tactical athletes. And every word you were saying, they were just sitting around like, it was some higher being talking. So you gravitate that. So what In, a short analogy or condensed thing, would you like to pass on about training?
Well, I guess two things. One, when I was at the AMU, we had a lot. That's all I did. I shot guns and taught people how to shoot guns. So you could have waste in training because there was just so much opportunity to train. Now I'm out and I've got so many more responsibilities and things to do, and I'm teaching a lot. So I don't have as much time to train. So figuring out efficiency of training, it was critical. And I went from shooting 80,000 rounds a year to like 30,000 rounds a year, which I know a lot of people will hear 30,000 rounds and be like, that's a lot. That is nothing in the competition world. That is a third of what you should be at if you want to really win a lot. But I'm able to not digress because my training efficiency is so high. So like I have a plan about 2 months before nationals that I start executing. And I have, and I go into this in my, I have a mindset course and it's basically all of this stuff. But if you essentially think back to our land nav analogy, right? It's like, I know I'm here and I want to get to the top of this mountain, which is, win a national championship. Okay. There's a million ways to get up there, but I would like to find the most efficient one. So then I say, all right, well, I need a pistol draw in under this amount of time. I need rifle shots out to 400 meters. And this is, and I define how you set those goals. And those are basically your like waypoints on your way to the top of that hill, right? So if I'm looking at that map, obviously I want to go straight there, but that's rarely the fastest way. So I got to avoid the cliffs and cross the rivers and do all the things that I know I'm supposed to do. That would be the efficient way to get to the top of the mountain. And so I lay out my training plan like that. And so I say, okay, first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to get my pistol game where it's supposed to be. What does that mean? Well, it means that I can do all of these things to this level. So that's move to the river, at the river, we're going to cross the river, and that's how I map it out so that if I do all of those things, the only place that I can end up is on the top of that mountain. Because winning a competition, like I said, a competition is just a gradient evaluation of a standardized task against my peers. So I'm just trying to see if I'm more prepared than everybody else in the country. So if I'm more prepared than everybody else in the country, it was due to my training plan. And then once I get there, I don't have to do anything more than I was prepared to do. I just have to do what I know how to do at the level that I know how to do it in that moment. And I will win. It's the only thing that can happen. And it works year after year after year. But through that training efficiency, one of the things like just a simple little story, but it might open people's eyes up to something in their life that they could improve. I would take 4 pistol magazines down to train. So I'd set up my drill, and it was a good, valid drill that needed to be done to improve a skill that needed to be bettered for the test of the competition. So objectively, a good thing to do. Draw my gun, shoot my 4 mags, doing the drill, whatever, go back, reload the mags, come back, first mag. What I realized is like my mind was still thinking about whatever it was that was what I was thinking about when I was loading my mags, because I didn't have any, obviously I wasn't training. So my mind was somewhere else. And so that first mag was just kind of getting back into it. And then I'd shoot. Well, that's 25% of my time is wasted because I'm not truly focused on what I'm doing. Now I load up 1,000 rounds in magazines. I take that whole bucket of ammo down there. I set up my drill. I define success, and then I train to success. That might be 120 rounds. That might be 600 rounds. But I sit there and I learn lesson after lesson after lesson, improve myself a little bit until I get to where I want to be. And then I stop and I come off. And then I let my mind relax and not focus on what I'm doing. And the efficiency of that, I just can't overstate how much of an advantage and how much quicker I got to all those points on that route to the top of that mountain by just little small changes like that in my training structure. The other thing is don't do more than one thing. If you're doing pistol draw, do pistol draw. If you're preparing for an interview, train to interview with that one specific person. Don't try to train for the whole world,
Right.
Be very specific about what you're doing and why you're doing it. And then the other thing that I would tell everybody is I break my training up into thirds. A third of it should be happy, successful, and motivated. A third of it should be grinding, persevering, and enduring. And a third of it should be miserable, exhausted, and defeated. And you have to have training balanced like that. And that's one thing that I try to show all the special operations community, because they feel like if they're, and I felt like this for years, if I'm enjoying this and it's just a ton of fun, I shouldn't be here. Right. I need to be pushing all the time, every time. And I did that. And I almost sold all my guns and left the AMU and freaking bagged groceries at Walmart, because if you stay in that miserable, exhausted, defeated, or that grinding for too long, you will burn out. It is absolutely inevitable. And so I see all these operators and, they're like, man, dude, like, I'm just freaking tired. I'm like, hey, dude, you need to take 2 weeks and you need to go skydiving and shooting and driving. And I don't care how you do. Just don't crash your parachute and don't shoot yourself, but just go have some fun. And if I can get those guys to go take 2 weeks and just go do commando stuff for fun, every single time the burnout goes away, because they spent too much time in those other 2/3 and they forgot why they were there and why they enjoy doing what they're doing. And I've never seen a successful commando in this, but if you did live in that enjoyable, happy thing too much, what you lose is your ability to know how you're going to react in adversity and the stressful situations, right? But then if you, the one that we all tend to stay in too much is that middle ground where you're just kind of grinding. And that is the people that you see go up and they plateau. Like they get pretty good, they get top 10, top 20, whatever, and then they just stay there because they go out and they do the same drill, basically the same level every time, and it's hard, but it's not super hard. And but anyways, you need to balance your training in those 3 areas for very specific reasons. And if you don't do that, you will not progress to where you need to be. It's one of the most dangerous things in performance, in my opinion, is getting those 3 things out of balance.
So one thing, I just want to jump in here. So I've been around a lot of people that are extremely elite. And if I did not know Dan's background, I could tell you one thing. I know he's a champion by what he just did about 5 minutes ago. He was defining his training plan, and he said these exact words: if I achieve this training plan, and he locked on and boldly said, I will win. And that to me resonated, because one thing is that there was no margin of defeat or even thought of it. You're like, if I do these things, I will win. And every champion I've ever spoke to, whether it's an NFL player, a hockey player, I don't care what it is, when they get locked in, when they know they can win, they do.
Yeah.
They don't have that defeatist attitude. I think it's amazing, because you could talk forever about mindset. And I know you teach a course. Can you tell us a little bit more about the course so people interested?
Oh yeah, man. I tell everybody that's what my real passion is. I can shoot a gun good, but I love working with people and the mindset stuff. And it's because, I started this very early and I didn't know any of this stuff. And, one of the main things people want help with is like overcoming stress and anxiety, like especially going into an interview, going into a public speaking engagement, going into a high performance event. And, through that course, I show them and there was sorry, I could talk about this for a long time, but I'll try to condense a 30-minute thing into 30 seconds. Basically the punchline is you cannot perform at the highest level without the adrenaline that's caused by that anxiety. If I took you and another you out to the range, right? And one of you had no stress and you did an event, and then the other version of you had a high level of stress that you learned how to control, and you learned to not only control it, but be excited that it's there. Because if you think about adrenaline, like what does adrenaline cause? It's what gets women to pick cars up off their babies. It's what it makes you stronger and faster and able to do things that you were not prepared to do prior to that moment. So you should not look at that stress of going into that environment as something that you want to get rid of. But there's 2 sides to it. There's anxiety and there's anticipation. Anxiety is bad, anticipation is good. And there's some very simple techniques to turn down that anxiety and turn up the anticipation, because anxiety is essentially the anticipation of pain, and your body reacts the exact same way, whether it's mental pain or physical pain. And so when you go into an interview, nobody's probably going to beat you, but your body is going to react the same way, right? Because it's the anticipation of potential mental anguish, just like it's reacting the same as physical pain, right? But at the same time, that adrenaline and everything, that the anticipation of action is very good. And it's what gives guys like you a huge advantage in combat, right? Like the guy that you are and the capabilities that you have are one thing. As soon as one bullet comes by you, you just got a 10, 15% improvement. And that guy is going to have a real bad day because of what he just did, right? And so basically that's what that mindset course, it goes through how to manage that stress, how to turn that stress from something that you don't think is a good thing into a superpower that is, as soon as I start feeling that, I'm excited because I know I'm capable of doing things now that I wasn't capable of doing 5 minutes ago, and then also, how do you train? How do you set a goal? Because a lot of people talk about goals. They want to achieve these goals. Well, there are lots of good things to do, right? But if I don't define what a good life is initially, there's a lot of good things that you can do that don't support what your version of a good life was. And things that are good for you may not be good for me, and vice versa. So I need to understand why I'm choosing that goal, and does that goal support a good life? And then can I resource it? As a sacrifice worth it? And you run down this whole long list. Like, is my wife on board with this? Like, if she's not, maybe we need to have that conversation before I start doing all this stuff to accomplish it. So like I said, that's what that mindset course is about. It's ultimus.com, and it's something that I care a lot about, and I've seen help a lot of people.
That's awesome.
That almost every time I go and teach, like, we spend about 2 hours running through that course.
So talk also about your facility down in South Carolina, your residence, and the capabilities and everything you have there.
Hopefully by the time this gets aired, we have the ability to shoot out to about 800 at the house. We've got, our property backs up to the National Forest, so we can bring guys in. We can shoot pistol, carbine, long range. We've got a 1 mile stress course where basically I give you the map, and it's basically follow this trail. And every time you run into a red marker, there's a target on the left, 1 to 3 targets on the left. If you run into a blue marker, there's 1 to 3 targets on the right. And if it's a circle, you shoot with a rifle, and if it's a square, you shoot with a pistol. And there's some pretty unique challenges in that course. And so if you come down for a week, we kind of break it up to, about 2 or 3. You do one of those long stress shoots every day, and then there's a culminating event. And it's a pretty good time.
So tell people how they can get down there and how to access it.
Oh, just go to danielhorner.com. We got training there. If you want to come hang out, the things I'm big on is small class size and eating well. So if you show up, I don't want 20 people on the range. I want 8 to 12. And we're going to eat good while we're there.
So danielhorner.com, and you guys you said close to like the Clemson, South Carolina?
Yeah. So we're northwest of Clemson, about 30 minutes.
Okay. So easy for people to find.
Yeah. You can fly into Atlanta or Greenville. And
yeah, talk about an ultimate team building event, right? Get down there, stress them out, put them through some stuff. Like,
yeah, we'll put you in the water.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, we were talking about this before we came up, but I would love to bring all my actual employees in Born Primitive Tactical and all my tactical games athletes out there, and just do a retreat, if you will, and get after it and have you elevate their game. I think it would be super cool.
Oh yeah, man. So it'll be a good time.
So anything else? We'll close up now. Let me ask you this. Are there any pearls of wisdom you'd like to pass to, shooters, people that are out there, competitive shooters, or anything you can think of that just to wrap it up?
Man, I would say if you're serious about getting better at anything, don't look at what you could be or should be, but just look at the advancement that you're making. Like I see guys all the time. It's like, well, I can't go to the range, and shoot 1,000 rounds a day. Yeah, but you can dry fire for 5 minutes, and if you could dry fire for 5 minutes and you did dry fire for 5 minutes, consider that a great success, and look at it as like, you shouldn't be spending all your time in the shooting room. Maybe your time is better spent in the family room, but you can't totally neglect the shooting room because it's how you defend your family. So, one thing especially the people listening to this podcast are probably generally high performing people. And I see more often than not, they need a pat on the back more than a kick in the butt. You know, look at all the things that you're doing. You know, odds are you're doing 99 of the 100 of them pretty freaking well. So don't lose sight of that. You know, improve that one, but you know, look at the good.
No, those are great words of wisdom. I'm so glad you came on here. And to be honest with you, once you got going, you ripped it.
Man, thank you.
Really, I mean, this is something that I think 6 months from now, I'd love to get you back on, and where we're going, where you're going, talk more about it. Maybe we'll do it down at your place or something like that. Obviously, we can do a traveling setup, right? We're mobile, which I got thanks to our Ironclad folks that set this up. This was my dream, and they actually delivered that we'd be able to do it here at SHOT, and you just can't do it on the floor.
No.
The noise down there and everything. So one small thing I'd like to give you, I've got a few things for you over there, but we are very close with Gators, and they just released their brand new ballistic eyewear called the Warhawk.
Oh, cool.
And I figured I'd turn you on to some cool pants. Now I'm going to try and turn you on to some cool eyewear.
Well, thank you, sir.
They swear by them. They love them. I've got a lot of operators that are wearing them. So give them a whirl. And if you like them, I'll connect you with the Gators folks. They'll take good care of you. They're good people.
Perfect.
So everybody, thanks for listening today. Dan Horner, world champion, shooter, mentor to special operations. And we're just fortunate to have him talk today because I'm sure, like I did, you guys learned something, and there's always pearls of wisdom with a champion like this. So Dan, thank you very much.
Thank you, man. Appreciate the opportunity.
You got it. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the HOTWASH by Born Primitive Tactical. Don't forget to like, subscribe, or follow us at Born Primitive Tactical. I'll see you next time.